everybody, welcome to Read and Reread, or welcome back. I'm Angelia, and today I am finally filming my much delayed Christmas reads video. As I was getting it together, I realized that there actually might be even a part 3 because I realized I was leaving out the picture books. So I come to you today in my Grinch attire. This is, I don't know what this is. I call it my Grinch jacket. It's kind of like Scrubs. It's got snaps and pockets. I don't know what it's supposed to be, but now it's my Grinch jacket and I've gotten much more than my $2 worth out of it, and I pity the fool that let this treasure go, but now it is mine. And if you are new to the channel, I've been pulling out cards from this Christmas conversation deck and then answering the question, and if you want to play along, you can give your answer in the comments. And if you're tired of this, sorry, Christmas comes but once a year and it'll soon be over. Okay, when was the last time you made a snow angel? Well, let me just tell you, the minute this video is over, I'm taking off this jacket because it's hella hot. It's going to be like in the 80s today, and that kind of sums it up. But I don't know if I've ever made a snow angel. Maybe when I was a kid and we went on like a vacation to Lake Tahoe or something, but I've never really lived anywhere. Well, okay, I take that back. When I lived in Virginia, it did get sufficiently snowy. But I don't like being like wet and cold, so I don't know if I ever have actually laid down and made a snow angel. I like sledding, like, you know, fun, fast, slippery kind of snow activities, but I may never have made a snow angel. I don't know. So, some of you live in snowier climates. When was the last time you made a snow angel? Do grown-ups like to make snow angels? I don't know, because my snow knowledge is very limited. All right, so let's talk about some books that I like to read at Christmas time. Some of them are old favorites. One of them I have not even yet read, and some of them are actually adult fiction and things, and some of them are children's fiction, but I like to read them as an adult. It's just sort of a hodgepodge of things that I like to read in December or November. All right, so I wasn't sure how I wanted to organize the order of things, so I decided to kind of do it in life order, because some of these I've been reading for a lot longer than others. So the earliest couple of items in my pile that I still pull out and read again at Christmas time, I received this book, which is called Take Joy by Tasha Tudor, and I think I was like 7 or 8, and I saw this book on a display of Christmas items at a store, and I fell in love with it, and my mother bought it for me, and I wrote my name in it. My little girl handwriting is still in here. And this is an anthology of stories, songs, poems, and also scenes from the Tasha Tudor, the Tudorverse, which I don't even really know who these people were, but apparently I always thought it seemed like somewhere there was some magical place in the New England countryside where people lived like they were still in the 1800s. But I would just sit and pore over these stories and pictures forever. And we have some classics in here. I mean, there's some excerpts from The Christmas Carol, The Gift of the Magi, which as a kid, reading that story and not knowing who O. Henry was, or, you know, the whole surprise ending kind of thing, reading that story as a kid and then getting to the end of it and just like, oh no, you know, the combs and the watch. They had a story I really loved in it called Christmas in London. This was part of my Anglophile obsession, which was going strong even as far back as like 2nd grade, which just depicted this guy with a little performing dog named Toby. And my favorite part was that it has a whole section of Christmas carols, and it has the sheet music, and it has all of the extra verses of all the Christmas songs. And I would take the book with me in the car, sit in the back seat, and belt it out. This was before, you know, you had 24-hour Christmas radio, but I was providing that for free from the back seat by singing, you know, all 6 verses or stanzas of Joy to the World or whatever it was. And I'm sure it was magical for whoever was driving. Now, this isn't really a Christmas book, but the opening chapter of Little Women is in my Christmas rotation as well. And in fact, I am such an immense dork that I even have a Little Women tote bag. And the back of the tote bag is, whoops, well, I'm not holding this up very well. It is the first page of the story. So the whole Christmas won't be Christmas without any presents, grumbled Joe, lying on the rug. That whole first page is there on my bag. So I love that scene. If you ever saw one of my earliest videos, which was like the unpopular opinions tag, you know that I have a deep and abiding dislike of Marmee, and she does kind of mess up the Christmas chapter, but it's part of the experience, the aggravation with Marmee. So, but I love that story too, of the girls deciding how to pool their money together to get something nice for their mother. All right, so going in a totally different direction and sticking to my tradition of fitting this book into virtually every video, we come to Catcher in the Rye. And Catcher in the Rye, I propose is it's not a Christmas book, but it's a book you should read at Christmas time because the whole book takes place during the days right before Christmas. So, of course, as most of us know, this is the story of Holden Caulfield and the days that he spends meandering around in New York City after getting kicked out of Pensy Prep. And there's a lot of references to Christmas in the book. You know, it is Christmas week. He's worried about borrowing his sister's Christmas money. He hasn't bought Christmas presents yet. There's, you know, the ice skating scene with that old pain in the ass Sally Hayes, and, you know, various, the Christmassy backdrop. And I think it's one of those, this gets used a lot in movies where there's the Christmassy backdrop and the cheery songs going on while there's some kind of serious subject matter or somebody's depressed or whatever, and just that kind of juxtaposition of the fact that not everybody is happy or traumatic things could be occurring in the midst of all this merriment. And that is definitely part of the vibe in Catcher in the Rye. But I have to bring this book up at every possible moment that I can justify in any way, because it is my all-time favorite novel, and I just love it. So even when I talk about it, then I want to read it again every time without fail, and it never lets me down. And so that is another book that is not really a Christmas book, but yet it is a Christmas book. I probably first did read Christmas Carol as a kid, and I did read it again last week. So, of course, this is the classic Dickens tale. This is the Dickens story that everybody knows, even if they haven't read any other Charles Dickens. And it is a tale of redemption on Christmas Eve by Ebenezer, well, it's not by Ebenezer Scrooge, it's by Charles Dickens, but it is a tale about Ebenezer Scrooge and how the revelation of his path in life has led to his own misery and contributed to the misery of others. And he has an opportunity to change his ways. This is probably one of the books that has the most versions of it on film. And everybody, you know, has an opinion on their favorites. I'm going to be going to a stage production of A Christmas Carol on Saturday. It is we recently moved to Corpus Christi, and I looked up and saw there was 2 theater groups in the city, and they each were doing a Christmas production, and one of them was doing a Christmas story and the other one was doing a Christmas Carol. And so I chose Christmas Carol and bought us some tickets for it. And it is the group is called I think they're called the Harbor Playhouse, and according to their website, it is the oldest continuously operating community theater group in Texas. And so I thought it'd be really fun to go. Well, I haven't gone to any of their plays yet, so I want to support the theater and see how they do with the Christmas Carol. And I think it's a musical, so I'm really looking forward to doing that this weekend. And I'll let you know how we enjoyed it. I want to highlight another story that I did talk about recently on Friday Reads, which is a Christmas Memory by Truman Capote. This is such a beautiful, exquisite story, and I didn't find this story until I was an adult, and I can't even remember how I came upon it. I might have been in a class I was taking, but it's anthologized in many collections, and there's probably an online version as well. And I think it would be nice if there was like a nice standalone volume of it that was pretty. I would buy that, but I happen to have it in this collection of Southern fiction called Homecoming, The Southern Family in Short Fiction. But Truman Capote reflects upon his childhood. One of his Christmas traditions was when a certain day would come around Thanksgiving in late November, when his best friend, who is an older woman who appears to be a person with some special needs, would announce that it's time to make the fruitcakes. On the first page of this story, there's a beautiful paragraph that illuminates the relationship between the narrator and this older relative, and it just tells you everything you need to know to appreciate the story that's to come. And here, I want to just read this one paragraph to you. The person to whom she is speaking is myself. I am 7, she is 60-something. We are cousins, very distant ones, and we have lived together, well, as long as I can remember. Other people inhabit the house, relatives, and though they have power over us and frequently make us cry, we are not on the whole too much aware of them. We are each other's best friend. She calls me Buddy in memory of a boy who was formerly her best friend. The other Buddy died in the 1880s when she was still a child. She is still a child. I just love that description. And the whole story is about Buddy and this unnamed lady and a little dog named Queenie gathering the materials they need to make a whole lot of fruitcakes. And it's a slice of life, and it's just so tenderly rendered. It's so tenderly rendered. And there's just some hilarious descriptions too of all the people that they have sent the fruitcakes to. Like they've sent one to the president at the White House. And I noticed in my copy of the book, I had some little pencil markings like roping off a little section, and I was like, what is that? And then I realized, I hadn't thought about this in a long time, but I realized that there was a time in the 90s when I was teaching 6th grade reading, and I think that what I did was I read this story to the class, but I edited out the passage where they go and visit Mr. Ha Ha Jones to buy the whiskey for the fruitcake. I cut out the alcohol reference when I read it to these kids and just moved on with the rest of the story. So that's a little historical note to myself inside my copy there. But it's just a beautiful little story. It's like one of those ones where every little word is perfect, and I love that story. When you're feeling more irrelevant is David Sedaris, Holidays on Ice. There is nothing poignant and heartrending in here, but there's a lot that's very funny. And it has his famous piece, Santaland Diaries. And I did notice, I reread it the other day, and I did notice there is a little part that has not aged well, where some people who are mentally challenged come to see Santa, that the way that the word choices that he uses to describe them are not really appropriate anymore. So that I was like, oh, you know, sometimes you read something you haven't read in a while and you're like, oops. But aside from that, it's still very funny. And I haven't read the rest of the stories. I know there's one that's sort of like a fake, over the top Christmas letter, and then some memories from the ever entertaining Sedaris family. But I mean, this one, you got the cover, and I have a story about this book too. When I was pulling this out to reread it again, I saw that it is actually a signed copy. And I had to go talk to Stephen because I was like, okay, I know we've seen David Sedaris a few times, but I did not remember like standing in a book signing line or like meeting him. I'm like, did this happen? How do I remember the performances and I do not remember this book signing? But I do remember when the occasion upon this happening, this is when we lived in Dallas. This would be like in the late 90s. And there was this, I don't know what you call it, like an art center called the McKinney Avenue Contemporary. They had this, one year they had this remarkable bargain where they had 3 different speakers, performance artists, kind of people for one low price. And the 3 people were David Sedaris, Spalding Gray, and the third person was Holly Hughes, but we had to do some research because we could not remember. We knew the third person was a woman, and then we couldn't remember what her name was. So we went because we were fans of Sedaris and Spalding Gray, and we thought we didn't know who the woman was, but we thought, well, you know, maybe that'll be fun too. And it was in this intimate little theater. Like, these were already people that were doing bigger shows, and, you know, Spalding Gray had made several movies of his performances. In fact, this was material that went with his final tour before he died. But it's like this little, you know, small box theater where you're like right up close. So it was super cool. And then it's when it got to the woman, Holly Hughes, when she came out and started doing her performance, we realized that we had seen her before too. One time we went on a trip to New York, and we decided to just go to a random like spoken word event, just that was, you know, we didn't really know what it was going to be. And it was like kind of not an open mic exactly, but it's sort of just an assortment of people that were presenting like stand-up or short performance pieces. And she was one of the people. So even though we thought we didn't even know who it was, we had seen her before too. So anyway, that was a long story about the backstory on that book, but the moral of the story is I like David Sedaris. Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan. Again, a book that is not specifically about Christmas, but it takes place right before Christmas, and definitely on my top 10 list of books that I read this year, and one of my favorite discoveries of an author that I did not previously know about. I love this book, and I love Foster, which I talked about last week. And this is absolutely beautiful, devastating. Another one where there's not a word wasted. It takes place in 1985 in Ireland, and it is about Bill Furlong, who delivers coal around town, and how he makes a startling discovery at the local convent, and he has to make a decision that puts him at the crux between expectations in his town and with his family and the status quo, and what he feels is actually morally right. And that's kind of, I don't know if that's making it sound boring or cutting a long story short or cutting a short story short, but it's one of those ones where it's like, never mind what it's about, just read it, take my word for it. All right, and then last, but hopefully not least, I have a new book that I have not yet read that came right before I left on my little recent trip, and that is Festive Spirits by Kate Atkinson. It is 3 short stories, and this was a book that she published in 2019 in the UK. She put it together as a fundraiser contribution to a program called Sight Savers. And I think there's an explanation in the back. Sight Savers is, it says, we campaign, it's an international organization working with partners to save the sight of the world's most vulnerable people, treating conditions like cataracts and providing glasses to people who need them. So I guess it's a UK charitable organization, and she wrote these stories and donated all the proceeds to Sight Savers. So I just kind of stumbled upon it by accident and ordered it, and I did not know when I ordered it that it was a UK printing. I didn't know what it was. I was just like, Kate Atkinson wrote some Christmas stories, and I just ordered it, and then it took forever to come, and I finally figured out it was because it was coming from overseas. So I haven't read it. I'm going to read it this upcoming week. I'm very excited because I love Kate Atkinson. I love how this book looks, and even if you take off the jacket, it's pretty on the inside, and so I'm super excited that I have made this discovery, and it can't possibly go wrong. Okay, so that is my wrap-up. These are books that I like to go back through and read and dip in and out of during the Christmas season. It is separate from my favorite picture books that my family likes to read together. And folks, we are still sitting and reading those picture books together, even though there are no children. The child is 21 years old, and in fact, she's going to get here in a few hours, so I have to cat-proof the house because her cat is, it is his first Christmas, and he's a zoomer and a climber, and he has never seen a full-size Christmas tree, and that is what it's going on. What are your favorite Christmas things to read or reread? You've commented in the past couple weeks with some really fun-sounding books already, but if you have anything else to throw in there, and if you want to tell your snow angel anecdotes, feel free to leave those in the comments as well. Otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll be back with Friday reads in a couple of days. I read a couple of good books during my recent little trip, and we'll see how far I get on anything else by Friday. So, see you soon. Bye-bye.